Hello everyone, hope all of you are doing good. Welcome to the first lecture of the first part of the course Strength of Materials. So as I already told you, in the first part we will study up to the concepts of complex stresses and strains, and then subsequently we will solve few problems. So this will be the first lecture of this part, and here we will try to learn what actually this strength of materials is. That is, it will be an introductory session. Now we have to note a point that strength of materials is alternately called as mechanics of solids or solid mechanics. When I say mechanics, I mean when I am pronouncing the term mechanics, then let me explain you it simply. So let me take an object or a system or a body, whichever you can say, a body or object or a system. So in our present case, let it be a seesaw. Every one of us might be familiar with this in our childhood. We have come across it and we might have played it around with it. So two people will sit at the ends of this seesaw and let their weights be P1 and P2. Depending on the comparison between P1 and P2, whether it is greater than or whether they are equal and P1 is less than or P2, which case it satisfies. Depending on that relation, either this end will come down or this end will come down, or it will stay as it is in that horizontal level. So it depends on external loads. So if our object or if our object of study is this entire seesaw, then our external forces are P1 and P2. Under the action of external forces, how our body or object or system this is behaving. Study of that behavior is known as mechanics. So simply we can say mechanics is study of behavior of an object or a system under the influence of external forces. Okay. Now depending on what type of object is under study, mechanics can be either engineering mechanics, strength of materials, or fluid mechanics. If we consider the object as rigid body, that means displacement between 2 points within the body does not change irrespective of how much load and in what direction we apply. So it does not depend on the external environment and external forces. Displacement between any 2 points we take will remain intact, same. That means the geometry of this object will never change. Those we call it as rigid bodies, and that is the main assumption in the study of engineering mechanics. And in engineering mechanics, our focus is just to find the reaction forces in case of statics, or find acceleration, velocities, etc. dynamic features in case of dynamics. So in whichever the case, we are not interested to study the internal behavior of the object. We will only study how this object is behaving externally with the external environment. So that comes under engineering mechanics. So there we assume that body is rigid. Now in reality, in the real world, such rigid bodies does not exist. Under the action of external loads, every object deforms to a certain extent. Take this example of seesaw. If our object under study is just this plank, then external forces are not just P1 and P2, but in addition to them, there is one more force, reaction force of this fulcrum. So there are 3 external forces, 2 are externally applied ones and 1 is reaction. Under these loads, how this plank behaves, that is mechanics. And in that again, if we assume this plank as a rigid one, that comes under engineering mechanics. But if we are not interested in finding out reaction forces or etc., or else if we already know all the external forces including the reactions, then the next step is to study how this is internally behaving. Under the action of forces, what are the stresses that are arising within the body? So the study or behavior within the body, that comes under strength of materials. Here we will see the actualness of the object. What is the actualness? Every body deforms under application of external loads. So this plank that we are seeing will deform slightly or heavily depending on what amount of load and what type of material it is. If it is very hard material such as steel and the weight is of the kids who are very light, then deformation will be very less. Say this is initial length, this is final one after application of load. It is final one, L minus delta L. So these both are almost the same. In case of this is a steel and the weight applied on it is very low. If it is a sort of plastic or something else or very flexible item, then deformation will be very high. So the deformation can vary depending on the material and depending on how much external load we are applying. So the study of how much deformation is happening and the study of how much stresses or internal forces are arising within the material, that within part, that comes under study of deformable bodies, and study of mechanics of these deformable bodies is strength of materials or mechanics of solids. So if the object under study is fluid, then that is fluid mechanics. What is fluids and everything, that can be studied in fluid mechanics. Now, when I already told you that in the strength of materials, we are concerned only about either deformations or the internal forces that give rise to the internal stresses. So just now we have saw that in strength of materials we consider the bodies are deformable. Now what is the purpose of that? I already told in the promo video that this subject strength of materials is useful in design. When I say design, in design we specify for every component that we design, we need to specify material limits or functional limits beyond which that component is considered to be failed. So beyond these limits, if we go beyond these limits, then we call that component is a failure. So these functional limits can be in terms of stresses or in terms of deformations. So what are these stresses? We will study with a deeper perspective in further classes, but simply to understand, these stresses are considered to be represented generally by sigma. Stresses are resistive forces or internal forces divided by the area upon which this is acting. So what are internal forces or resistive forces? Say for example, there is a body and it is acted upon by external forces like this. Then what happens? Say they take some section, this is part 1 and part 2. Now when you observe, for this part 2, this P is pulling this side. What happens internally to resist that? This part 1 will try to pull this part to this side, maintaining equilibrium. Similarly, when you see this part 1, it is being pulled by this force P. Automatically, obviously, some internal force will arise on the part 2 side, and this part 2 will pull this part 1 in this direction. So this is internal forces that are arising. These internal forces acting on the cross section will give rise to stresses. That internal force or resistance force, I am calling it as R, and this cross section I am taking as A. In this case, this is the area upon which this force is acting, internal force. So that R divided by A gives us stresses. So to what extent, this stress will depend on how much force we are applying. Beyond certain limit, if we go on increasing this force, this stress will also increase, and at certain point it will break. So that limit, that functional limit up to which I can go in terms of stresses comes under internal forces perspective. And also, if we are deflecting certain object which was straight initially, but due to application of loads, it is deflecting. So what extent it can deform, if we specify that within our functional limits, then it is design based on deformations. When design is based on deformations, we call it as a stiffness based deformation. Stiffness based design. So in such designs, we cannot go beyond certain level of deformation. If we go beyond that, it will be called as failure. Same way, in strength based designs, we cannot go beyond certain level of stress or internal forces within the object. So these are the types of designs that are involved in strength of materials. Now, before going into the core concepts, let us also see what are the basic assumptions that are followed throughout the course. First thing is, it is homogeneous, the material is homogeneous and isotropic. So when I say homogeneous, what does that mean? So within the material, say this is the object. Within the, when I say homogeneous, this material is homogeneous, it means that any point you take, when you fix certain direction, within that direction, elastic property is same at all the points. Whichever point you take, in that direction, elastic property remains same, constant. Elastic property can be elastic modulus E or shear modulus G or bulk modulus K, anything. So those are all elastic properties, they remain constant in a given direction. For a given direction, so it is direction dependent. For a given direction, irrespective of where the point is, that elastic property remains same. So homogeneous means independent of, or independent, location independent. Wherever you take, whichever point you take within the material, in the given direction, that elastic property remains same. So homogeneous means location independent. It does not depend on where we are taking the point, but it is dependent on the direction we are taking. If we change the direction, elastic property may change. But again, if we are taking this direction, even at this point, or even at this point, or even at this point, that value will be same. Say for example, in the horizontal direction, these values are E1. At all the points in horizontal direction, the value will be E1. Say in this inclined position, if it is E2, at all the points at the same inclination, the value will be E2. So when the direction is specified initially, then at any point within the material, property is same, that is homogeneous. And what is isotropic? So we call a material as isotropic when at a given point, here point is specified, which point we need to take. At that point, in whichever direction we take, material property is same. Either you go horizontally upwards or downwards at certain inclination, in all directions it is E1. But point is specified. If point changes here, again property value may change, but again here in this point, whichever direction you take, property value will be same. So here what happens in isotropic? It is direction independent, does not depend on direction. In every direction value is same, direction independent. So that is what we assume, the first thing. The next thing, we are dealing with prismatic members. 90% of the cases, when we go into the depth of the concept, we will only consider either rectangle or circular or triangle, whatever shape it is, it will be the same throughout the cross section, throughout the length. The cross section will be same throughout the length of the object. That is prismatic member. Then next, material should follow Hooke's law. What is Hooke's law? All these things we will study in detail in the further classes, but presently Hooke's law means it states that stress is directly proportional to strain in an object. Directly proportional to strain, linearly proportional. The next thing, the load is applied gradually. See, in the further classes we will see that the loads can be classified on different criteria. Among them again, it is with respect to time, load can be gradual, load can be gradual, load can be sudden or impact. Among them, until and unless it is specified in the question or in the topic, we consider that load is gradually applied one. Next one is, only engineering stress and strain are used in the analysis. So what is this engineering stress and strain? We will study in the further classes, but This is an assumption. There is such an assumption. Just remember that. You will understand it very clearly in the next session. Next, we also assume that effect of the body forces are neglected until and unless it is mentioned in the problem that we have to consider the weight of the body. Until and unless that is mentioned, we should not consider it. Okay, that means if it is mentioned in the question that we have to consider the weight of the body, then only we should consider the weight. Otherwise, we will neglect the self weight of the body or object. So that we will see when we are trying to study the subject topics of beams, bars, etc. There you will understand why this assumption is taken. So effect of residual or pre or initial stresses are neglected. Say for example, there is a glass or a tumbler, we can say there is a glass. So it is a usual usage, but actually it is a tumbler, utensil, steel glass. So how these are actually made? We actually take a blank, steel blank, we apply, we draw this blank to its shape. There will be upper die, there will be a lower die. This lower die will have a shape of this glass or tumbler, and from we will push this upper die downwards by holding it at this edges. So this plate, this horizontal blank will be drawn to this shape of the cup. So now what happens there? Due to that, there are lots of stresses that arise on the walls of this tumbler or this utensil. So these stresses, we are actually here not using this to our applications, say for drinking water or coffee or anything. We are not at all using it. Within the manufacturing process itself, there are certain stresses that are induced into these walls or into this object. Those stresses are incorporated into this object during the manufacturing phase itself. Those stresses are called pre-stresses or initial stresses. So we are neglecting those because if we consider them in our study, then it becomes complex. To simplify our study for our undergraduate level, we are neglecting these things. All these assumptions are because at undergraduate level, we have to simplify the topic and understand it at first hand. Then as we understand the things, then we will then we say that material is defect free. There are no voids, or the material is continuous. Defect free, or we can say material is continuous without any voids. So why so? Because in the earlier example I have told that when material is pulled like this at this cross section, I said sigma equals to P by A. This area of cross section is A. Now when I say A, this cross section is taken entirely. If there are any voids, that means the calculation will become, this area is not the actual one. In that case, the calculation becomes complex. We have to consider how many voids are there. We have to consider effective area. So calculating effective area will become very difficult because void shapes change from place to place. Say for example, this is the rod. At this point there can be big void, and at this point is a small one. So with the microscope or some device, considering calculating diameter or dimensions of each void and calculating the effective area is very difficult, almost impossible. So instead what we assume is there are no voids. It is completely defect free. The material is continuous. Then what we can take directly, we can take the entire area. Just we can measure this diameter or dimension and we can consider this area entirely. So it will be easier for our calculations or analysis. So that's why we need to consider material is defect free. Next is deformations are within the limits. Why? Because in strength of materials, we are trying to design the components that are not failure. So that can happen only when the deformations are within the limits. If it is out of the bounds, then the study will become not the strength of materials, but the study will be failure analysis. That will be entirely different study. There we will consider deformations beyond the limits. Here in strength of materials, deformations will be within the limits. Next is stresses are concentrated and vary at ends or supports. Actually, in engineering mechanics as well in strength of materials, what we assume is our study is well away from the supports, because near the supports it was practically proven or experimentally proven that near the supports stresses are very concentrated, they are not uniform. But our analysis can be easier when we see that stresses are uniform across the cross section or across the area. So then to simplify our study, what we consider is we are studying away from the we are keeping our study away from the edges or away from the supports, so ends, away from the ends supports, so that the stresses are uniform. Okay, so this is Saint Venant's principle actually. So these assumptions are done throughout this course only to simplify the analysis, because we are at undergraduate level. We don't want to make our study complex. If you are very much interested to know the complexities of the subject without these assumptions, then you have to take up masters and then PhD. Then you focus upon this particular concept. Say you don't want, if you want to study when the load is when the impact loads are applied, or you want to study what kind of stresses are arising when material is having defects. In such cases, studies get more complex. We have to consider more and more factors. The number of factors we have, the more complex is our study. So to avoid such complexities for our undergraduate study, we assume these things, these points, and proceed in the course. Okay, so with this, let us end the session. Thank you.